everybody. Good afternoon and good evening to our friends across the pond, especially to our guest speaker here. Welcome everyone to today's session with 1863 Ventures, Beauty Meets AI, a fireside chat with Simi Lindgren, founder and CEO of YUTY. My name is Wendy Maldonado D'Amico, and I'm the community director at 1863 Ventures. 1863 Ventures is a Washington, D.C. based accelerator and fund designed to support new majority entrepreneurs across the country. Our mission is to accelerate Black and Brown entrepreneurs from high potential to high growth. Our vision is to create $100 billion of new wealth and economic power by and for the new majority. Today's session will last 1 hour and it will be recorded. All participants will be muted and not visible, but you can submit your questions for Simi in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. What else? I will talk to Simi for about half an hour here in a very loose discussion, and I will reserve the last 15 to 20 minutes for your questions. And let's see, what else? That's about it. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our featured guest for today. Simi Lindgren is founder and CEO of YUTY, the AI-driven conscious beauty destination. Founded in 2020, YUTY is on a mission to help beauty shoppers all over the world discover and buy the right beauty products that will work for you sustainably. So YUTY has been featured in the likes of Refinery 29, POPSUGAR, ELLE, and Black Beauty and Hair. An award-winning commercial leader with a background in luxury, beauty, and fashion within the MarTech and communications industry. Simi's past clients have included Unilever, Estee Lauder Companies, Coty, LVMH, Chanel, Elizabeth Arden, and more. Having led initiatives at the Financial Times Stock Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange, listed businesses championing Black, Asian, and minority ethnic and LGBTQIA colleagues. Simi has frequently spoken about diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as AI in beauty and sustainability. She has been described by ELLE as a trailblazing woman, changing the future, and was recently named Management Today 35 Under 35. Simi, welcome. We are so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you. It's so good to be to be speaking again with you.
Oh yes, absolutely. So Simi, just so that many of you know, Simi and I had another discussion, a panel discussion several months ago, also centered around beauty entrepreneurs. And we had such a wonderful discussion. I decided that I wanted her all to myself this time. So and so I want to just welcome Simi, and we're so thrilled to have you here for the 1863 Ventures community. We are all in the U.S., so of course we are very charmed by your beautiful accent. We're all suckers for a good British accent. So what I would love to do is get started and have you just tell us a little bit about yourself. We would love to learn a little bit more about you before you started this company. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh, wow. So a little bit about me. I'm a Black Nigerian woman, a woman of Nigerian heritage. I'm a wife. I'm a mother of two. And I guess I've always had this entrepreneurial flair. It feels really strange when I start talking about myself. I'm so good at talking about YUTY, and then it starts talking about myself. I get really strangely introverted again. But I've always had this desire to make a real difference, and I think it was with this desire to make a difference that aligned with my values, my physical values of accuracy, hard work, my interpersonal values of equality, fairness, and trust, that I decided to go on this journey. And this journey, I feel like, has been coming my whole entire life. I had plans of becoming a doctor. I went to medical school to help, match patients with the right treatments and figure out ways to help them through whichever ailments were troubling them. And then I went down this whole publishing route, working on a PC gaming title, and then, on a middle brow publication, matching advertisers with audiences. And then the role that I guess really put me on the trajectory that I'm on now, which is at YUTY, where I was matching PRs and brands, the brands that you mentioned, with media, celebrities and influencers looking to drive brand awareness. And yeah, that's a little bit about me to date. And then I'm now at YUTY.
Interesting. So you said a minute ago that you've always had these entrepreneurial tendencies. When did you know that you were an entrepreneur, or do you come from a line of entrepreneurs?
Oh, good question. I don't know that I ever known that I was an entrepreneur. I mean, there are definitely, I think in my family, there are so many, I guess, examples where entrepreneurialism has been exhibited. But I think, some people are of the train of thought that you're born with it, and others believe that, well, I believe that it can be learned, and if you work really hard. But I think one thing that I think all entrepreneurs have in common, and something that most people say about me, is that you just work tirelessly. You work tirelessly on this mission, and you're never kind of settling down. You kind of always want to achieve. And I think that's something that's always been with me since I was a young girl. I'd learned my multiplication times tables up to 12 at the age of 3, and I'd set this record in a 100-meter sprint of 11.62 seconds or something in my formative years. And then I was in the top 5% of the country in this national kind of gifted and talented program. And then, I was nicknamed New Business Queen, and I was the youngest director. So it's always kind of trying to improve upon my success. And I think, as an entrepreneur, you're always trying to set goals and challenge yourselves. And I think the other aspect of it is I never really felt like I truly fit in anywhere. I think because, as I mentioned, I was this introvert, I'd always enjoyed listening. I always felt like I was in solution mode. So I think, I think that's something that maybe entrepreneurs have in common, that you do something really crazy, or others think that is, you're taking a real risk. And for me, that was leaving a career with a 6-figure salary, or dropping out of medical school, or getting married at 22. That really kind of, you go after this thing, and you go after it with gusto. So I think, I think for me, always feeling quite confident in my decision making, and really being quite tenacious about making things happen. I don't know that it qualifies me as an entrepreneur, but I think it's the traits that I've exhibited that tell me that I should be doing what I'm doing right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm sure everybody is really curious. How did YUTY come about for you? Did you have some sort of aha moment? What kind of problem were you trying to solve with YUTY?
There were many aha moments. As mentioned, I'd been on this personalization journey for a while, whether it was matching patients with treatments, or matching advertisers with the right audience, or PRs and brands, and with media celebrities. And now obviously I'm matching customers with the right beauty products. But in 2015, I had this interview with journalist Dr. Atejol, and she came and wanted to interview me because I was a young leader in this role at this company. And she was talking about my hair care, my skin care, my beauty routines. And at the time I was making a significant investment in my beauty products. 80% of them were conscious beauty products, but I was finding that I was having real trouble finding the right products, like what will work for me. I'd already transitioned nicely from having heavily relaxed hair to, natural hair. And when I say transition nicely, the year before I just decided to shave it all off. But I was having severe struggles with, finding the right foundation for my combination oily skin. And at the time, I didn't realize I was pregnant. So there was all these changes, hormonal fluctuations that were happening that were causing my usual beauty routine to not work anymore. And in that year, that 2015, it was incredibly pivotal for artificial intelligence. So we're talking about driverless cars, automation of labor, AlphaGo, which is, the program that beat, the world champion at the game Go. And I was reading about all of this AI and I was having these beauty troubles. And then I realized I was pregnant and I was thinking to myself, how could I leverage artificial intelligence to just match people with the right beauty products that I'd done so many times previously? And I think it was that whole year and everything that I was going through that made me realize, like, I have to get started with YUTY.
So interesting. So tell us about YUTY's mission. What drives you and what drives everybody who works at YUTY?
I mean, we have a daily stand-up every single day where we talk about how many customers have we matched? I think that is our thing. Just what, like, I don't want anyone to feel like how I felt, where it was, you know, where I felt like it was my fault, where I felt excluded from beauty. Why aren't products working for me? I think it's just, you know, we focus on ensuring that we're matching customers with the right products, but obviously they're conscious products. And we just want to ensure that, you know, we're solving this problem. And I think it's with YUTY, it's a real intersection of beauty, conscious beauty, sustainability, and AI. And, you know, this overall solution is solving these kind of societal and industry and technological issues that didn't feel like it when I was talking about it back in 2015, but it's something that we're so cognizant of every single day. Whether it's matching customers to the right beauty products so that there's not that financial waste or product waste, or building YUTY AI so that it recognizes everyone and ensuring that the data set that we're training our models on recognizes everyone. Our mission every day is to ensure that we're matching people to products and making them feel like they're in beauty, that we're actually putting them in the center of beauty.
So you operate with beauty, AI, sustainability, and consciousness. Talk to me about that consciousness piece, because I want to make sure I understand and that our audience understands what that means to you and your company.
So when we think of conscious beauty, we think of products that have been thoughtfully kind of created, whether that's when they, you know, ethically source ingredients at the beginning of the product life cycle, all the way to, you know, using packaging that can be recycled or that doesn't take 10 million years to decompose and have that that disruption on the environment. So we're thinking about brands, we're curating brands that are thinking, you know, consciously and thoughtfully about people, about the generations to come, about the environment, about the planet. So that's one aspect of it. And then the other aspect is in building YUTY. You know, it's not easy to build, you know, algorithms that recognize everyone. And the data sets that I was having a challenge with years ago were incredibly biased. So talk about crowdsourcing thousands of images so that we can recognize what does melasma and acne look like on these various different shades, and how can we have a customer that simply takes a selfie and is recognized, and then is matched to products because we spot the melasma, you know, and we can see that. And I think that's where that kind of consciousness, that really being quite intentional about the business is really important for us at YUTY.
Very interesting. Okay, so you launched August of 2020, am I right?
Yes, 25th August.
Okay, what a crazy time. Okay, so you launched during the pandemic, you launched after the murder of George Floyd. I'm curious, we actually have many entrepreneurs within the 1863 network who also launched around that time. So all of you were undaunted. I'm curious about these early days of your launch and these tremendous external forces of both the pandemic and the shockwaves of the aftermath of George Floyd, and how that may have impacted your launch, your decision to go to market. Did one or both affect how any of your decision making around your launch, and if so, how?
Um, no, it didn't. Launching a business, I think, anytime is really tricky, right? Whether it's during a pandemic or otherwise, it's tough. And I think there's kind of businesses that operate within the beauty industry that I'm familiar with, and even fashion actually. So one that I can think of, Cult Beauty, and then the other, Farfetch, which both kind of launched at similar times during the financial crisis. And I think what kind of drove me, it was, 2020 was a very big year, but what kind of drove me is that I knew that I felt that we were creating a product that would make a real difference, and timing, I'd already put it off for so many years that timing had nothing to do with it. Like, I couldn't allow it to be delayed anymore, because it was going to be an online business. We were going to be a remote first business, and our customers would be shopping online, and we just wanted to ensure that people were able to find products that empowered them, products that were the right fit. I think when we think of what happened with the murder of George Floyd, being Black British and Black British African, but being human, I think everyone was impacted by it, especially by the harrowing footage. And I think the social issues that came from it was recognizing kind of the racial injustice that some people are going through on a daily basis. And that kind of further kind of ignited like a fire, I guess, for all of us, all two of us at YUTY, which was, we were using innovation, AI, to kind of tackle those issues of racial injustice, and then on the flip side, which was climate justice. And I think with what happened with George Floyd, what I loved seeing following the protests of Black Lives Matter was the solidarity that came from the industry, and brands highlighting the exclusivity of that underserved communities were feeling on a daily basis. And I think for us, that was an awareness that needed to happen, because 70% of YUTY brands are Black female founders, but Black founders predominantly. So that was like, okay, now people are understanding these brands with these incredible founders are creating products not just for this community, but for everyone. Why haven't we thought like that from the very beginning? Like, why are we formulating products that are biased and tested on this community, not all communities? Why are we creating algorithms that are only tested on this bias data set, not all? So I think that was one of the key things. I think it helped highlight, that awareness to people that actually we should be thinking wider and not just so insular as they had been for so long.
So how are you sourcing the products that you have on the YUTY site? How do you find all these amazing products and amazing founders? Curious.
When we launched in August, on the 25th of August 2020, I had a hit list. I had a hit list that I had been building for about 3 years of brands that I'd come across that I thought were absolutely awesome. They're indie brands that were hitting kind of the key pillars of YUTY. And I started reaching out to them, early last year and some before. And that was how we were curating YUTY. After we received press following the 25th of August 2020, our birthday, our launch of the MVP, I think we had about 30 brands contacting us, weekly.
Wow.
Now there's so much inbound, but we still have this really, I haven't contacted all the brands that were on my hit list. And now we have all of these other brands that have contacted us directly, that we still have our curation process. We look through, does the formula fit? Is it hitting all of this? Is the packaging, is the brand being thoughtful and intentional? Are they conscious? Are they sustainable? Are they inclusive? What do customers think? Like, we're still looking at all of these different things, socials, how the product looks, and we're trying and testing every single one. It usually takes about 3 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we have a team. We have and you know, they're not like employed by YUTY, but you know, our advisors and, you know, experts like who are part of that whole testing. And we've recently recruited, well, like 6 months ago, recruited, you know, our customers to be part of kind of a focus group and testing and trialing the brands that we onboard. So there's a real curation process. And we're not trying to be exclusive. We just really want to say that these brands have the kind of YUTY stamp of approval. We've looked into their formula. We understand, you know, that they're trying to do this and meet this need. And they've been tried and tested by us, and we love them.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Okay. So, and just so that people here know, I went on to the YUTY site to try it out before speaking to Simi today. And I would encourage everybody who is watching to go to YUTY and check out go through the process. It's very intuitive and fun, actually, to evaluate what your needs are: skin, hair, etc. And it's I actually enjoyed it. I wasn't sure what to expect. And so, and also you're also evaluated according to kind of stressors that you're under, hormonal changes, things like that. So I appreciated the subtlety of the questionnaire. So what I would like to now talk about is sort of some of the more you know, operational things of getting your company up and running. I'm curious, you know, everybody has, say here, a big dream. You have this idea that you're going to change the world with your particular product or service. And one of the things you need, in addition to a great idea, is capital. Yes. So talk to us about financing YUTY. Did you kind of work full time until you assembled, and like, did you decide to self-fund? Did you raise angel money? You know, it's so hard for people to raise money in the first place. It's hard for women to raise money. It's the hardest of all for Black women to raise money. So talk to us about financing YUTY at launch, and kind of how things have gone on that front for you.
Yeah, I mean, YUTY was completely bootstrapped. It was bootstrapped from savings. I mean, I had known, as I said, from 2015 that I wanted to do this. So I was putting aside money that I was hoping would go towards this business. And it was just, I kind of had like golden handcuffs. It's like, when do I make this change? Because at the time, I was the breadwinner. So the person that was bringing in the money for our family and 2 young children, it's like, if I decide to go on this journey, I most probably won't have a salary. My life would drastically have to change. And plus, I'm investing our life savings into this business.
Yeah.
So, I did go on that journey. It took me a while to save. And I recognized that it's not something that everyone can do. You can try and save a lot of money to be, you know, to kind of allow you to go on this journey, because you most probably will be without a salary for 6 months, a year, 2 years, potentially. And I was fortunate enough to be able to save enough, but even that wasn't enough. You know, I was paying salaries, and I was having to make critical decisions last year about, do I pay the AWS bill, or do I, you know, pay a home bill? It was really scary. And we have investors now, but I bootstrapped for a period of time, nearly a year of bootstrapping solely. And with all of the kind of traffic that we got, as great as it was, it gave me severe anxiety, because the more traffic we got, the higher our server bills got. And it's a computationally heavy model. So it's like, you want it to work, but it's like, I'm really having to make serious decisions about whether I can pay this bill because of the traffic that we're getting to the site. And we were so thoughtful about not taking huge commissions from our brand partners. So it was a scary time, but in March, as you most probably aware, we closed our pre-seed, and we closed more than we wanted to, and that was a good feeling for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a sign that you have a viable business, that you have more customers than you know what to do with, and you're starting to panic a little bit because you're kind of like stretching the seams of what you have in terms of both infrastructure and funding. So it's scary, right?
It was
a
scary.
Good kind of scary, but scary.
Really scary.
Yeah. So in terms of that whole fundraise, so you have investors now.
Yes.
Was there a point where you decided, okay, now I'm running out of money, I have to start fundraising? How did you make the leap into learning, pulling together your pitch deck, teaching yourself to pitch, and then networking to get to the people who would actually fund you? Talk to us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so YUTY we launched our MVP in August of 2020, and I think I officially started pitching in November of 2020. I realized quite early on that we, just from the numbers that we were seeing come through, the traffic, and we paid zero for customer acquisition. Like to this day, we
wait, what?
Zero.
How is that possible?
Zero on customer acquisition. So that's when I realized it's a word of mouth business, I think. This kind of marketing is incredible. Someone has a fantastic experience and they go and tell their friends. So that's really, and then the press, of course, happened as well. So I think, that I knew that we had something, and outside of, registering our system and method with the USPTO to patent that technology. It was, okay, if we have something, and marketplaces are a capital intensive business, how do we, I can't obviously use my life savings, we need funding. What does that look like? So I started speaking with angels, and then I was hesitant about VC, if I'm honest, because we know how
little.
How little, exactly. I mean, what is it, 0.34% in the US?
It's ridiculous. It's tiny.
About 0.2% in the UK.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was hesitant about how I'd be received, and I wasn't sure, but I knew we had this product, and I felt that if we were able to get capital, VC capital especially, would propel us on this trajectory. So I didn't have any special contacts. Even my advisory boards that I pulled together, it consisted of, Akiko Takashima, who I'd met years ago, who kind of did the whole branding and marketing for Dr. Barbara Sturm. These are people that I'd come across and thankfully was still in contact with. Katori King, I worked with her. And Carmen Biscay, I reached out to her on Instagram. This is someone that was a founding investor of Net-a-Porter, invested in Cult Beauty, Farfetch.
Wow.
And I didn't have those contacts, but I just knew that this mission, I knew what was needed, and I just went at it, and I didn't want myself to be the obstacle. I didn't allow myself to be the obstacle. I was only thinking about, we need to get YUTY here, and I need to represent for those that are following me afterwards. So it was incredible amounts of resilience and tenacity, a certain level of insanity, to reach out to 2 VCs and decide when I needed money that I wasn't going to speak to any other VCs apart from these guys who I felt were fit YUTY so perfectly. And I created a pitch deck, which when I look back on it is horrendous, but I'd watched many YouTube videos, and this is what I thought my pitch deck should look like. But the key stats were in there, what investors needed to see, how we were solving a problem, what customers had said, what press we'd received, what the month-on-month growth had been, you know, those financial metrics that really count. The advisory board that was so thoughtfully put together, and essentially how they could be part of this fantastic journey with us. I sent my email, and it was incredibly personalized, and it had to be. I mean, I'm in the personalization business, we're talking about matching products, so I'm trying to match a VC to YUTY.
Right.
And I sent that in December, and by January, the end of January, we had a phone call, and by the end of March, it was done. You know, they were on board. It was fairly quick.
I'm hearing echoes of your technique around curating and matching people to products, and curating and matching a VC to YUTY, right? You need to build an algorithm for entrepreneurs that matches entrepreneurs to investors. Come on now, that'll be your next business. But anyway, I don't want to get off track here.
I think finding the right fit. Everyone wants to find the right fit. And I think sometimes, you know, entrepreneurs, but women, and we discount ourselves so much. And I think if I didn't come out of myself and look at it with a different lens, I would have certainly have allowed myself to be the obstacle. And for these are the reasons why this VC needs to be with us, and I need to communicate that to them in this email. I've only got one shot, and this deck, this email and deck, knowing that they received so many emails and decks, and the fact that they responded just before Christmas, I think I knew that I had to sell myself going forwards.
Absolutely. So how did you, so talk to, I have so many questions for you. So let me just follow through on that thought for a moment. You're an introvert by nature. We as women can often be subject to moments of self-doubt that maybe men don't experience as much. Mm-hmm. How did you, is it that internal drive and that fire that you have around the business that kind of got you over those humps of both introversion and any self-doubt you may have felt? What did you do to kind of mentally catapult yourself over those two hurdles?
So I see it's only when I'm surrounded by like extroverts, or when I'm having to speak about myself, that I see my introversion as a weakness. But other times I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I love it because I'm fully recharged by the business and doing what I'm doing. And it gives me this kind of laser focus, but it's kind of like an incubator for ideas and wanting to constantly be in the solution mode. So I felt like if I could just get all of that that's in my head and something that I'm so incredibly passionate about, not on paper, but, you know, in email across, I think I could. And you just have to approach it in this, well, I had to approach it in this very kind of analytical way, to show that I could do this. And as I said earlier, I think sometimes you allow yourself to be the obstacle, but when you're so focused on this mission, this thing that you know will make a huge difference, then I think that's what was spurring me on a lot of the time. Also, you know, I was working incredible amounts of hours, still do. And as I said, I've got 2 young children. So it's also that as well. Like, I can't allow myself to be the blocker.
That makes complete sense. Okay. So every entrepreneur has to do everything. And at some point, you can't do everything and you have to hire people. So talk to us about how you have found talent to build YUTY, and are you conscious about hiring diverse talent, or is finding diverse talent intrinsic to your business model?
It's 100% intrinsic to our business model to find diverse talent. diversity for us isn't just, focused on race or ethnicity or, gender or sex, like who they love. It really is diversity of thought. I come from a Nigerian background, so maybe in order to ensure that everyone's seen in beauty, it's not great for me to just hire Nigerians or just British people, or someone from London, or someone who wants to support it, all of these various different things. So it's really important that, we are diverse as a team, so that we can, as much as we can, reflect the customers who are using YUTY. But we're still an incredibly small team. It sounds, I know it most really looks like we have like 10 million people here, but we honestly have like 2.5 people. There's myself, obviously I wear many hats, my data science and machine learning lead who's been on this journey with me, who also wears many hats. I think when he'd done his master's and in artificial intelligence, and then in statistics, and then in mathematics, all of these different things, I think he most probably thought he'd just be focusing on artificial intelligence and not expecting to help out with marketing or, social media or things like that. So, I mean, we have been fortunate since getting funding to bring additional resource into the team, which is great. And those people that have joined us now, they have joined us in contractor roles, specifically because I think one of the things I'm so aware of is that at pre-seed and at seed, or at any sort of early stage startup, you have to say goodbye to a lot. Hiring that team is incredibly important. There aren't any corporate benefits. Like, we're not fully, funded. My goodness, I think my son's just turned on my TV. Hold on 1 second. But we're not this, fully funded machine. There's not 10 million of us here, where we've hired them into contract roles because it is an incredibly scrappy, early stage startup is scrappy in nature, right? And we're wearing many hats, and there's none of the corporate benefits. And you're really, when you're remote first, you're relying on yourself to have that kind of social motivation to kind of do this, even though you're not in an office environment. So a little bit of LinkedIn stalking and referrals from other founders to be able to find the right team. And I'll be intentional. I'll say I'm looking for a female full stack developer, because if I say full stack developer, then they'll say, okay, and send me loads of male CVs, and I'll be like, I want a female, and very, very intentional. Or, the same when we were doing, when was hiring our data scientist or social media person, it was, very, very intentional. And I'm very specific, because you get to understand the gaps that we have, and you hire accordingly.
Mm-hmm. So Simi, correct me if I'm wrong, but you sound analytical by nature. Are you? So, I think for some entrepreneurs, they're very visionary and they have this great big idea, but the metrics piece may not come as naturally to them. Mm. Can you share with our audience how you've approached the whole idea of sort of the core tracking of your business metrics, establishing them, tracking them, and being able to show investors what kind of progress you're making? Is that something that you just knew to do instinctively? Is it something you kind of had to train yourself to do? It sounds like you were already kind of, you had that tendency anyway. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I have always had this. I think anyone who knows me, both professionally, who's worked with me in other businesses where, as you said earlier, I was a commercial leader, and then personally know that I love data, and I tend to make incredibly data-driven decisions. Mm-hmm. So, when it came to communicating, now that we have investors, when it came to communicating kind of the metrics, I was like, okay, so we'll just build, a Python-driven dashboard So they can just log in anytime and look at specific financial metrics. So they can see the average order value. What was it in December of last year and what is it now? They can understand what the engagement metrics are. They can see what the KPIs are that we set. And that was just kind of natural for me to even think to do that. We should just build it. I wasn't even going to, I think, licensing or buying the tool didn't even come to mind. I just wanted to build something because I figured if we're an AI driven business, then this shouldn't just be outward facing. It has to drive everything internally. So it was really important for me, being that most of the decisions that we make are driven by data, to have that data available and so that everyone could see it and have that transparency. So that, you know, when we think, okay, 80% of our brands are Black founded, having that allows us to drive brand partner acquisition, or understanding that there is 10% conversion from the YUTY advisor to sale, like all of these different things. Where can we improve? What do we need to do? Our average order value in terms of sales is about £100, so just over $120. And that knowing when that's up and when that's down, and how many what the cart size or the bag size looks like, how many products are in a bag, that's really important for us to know whether we're on the right track, or whether, you know, we're building something that people think is useful, is interesting, is going to help them. And like I said, every day we're asking how many customers have we matched today. Like these numbers and these metrics drive our entire business, and it allows us to set goals, our success goals. I don't know that we'll ever, you know, believe that we're successful until like all 7.5 billion people on this planet are perfectly matched to products that empower them in a sustainable way. But
we have to have big goals. I love that. Okay. All right. So, you know, when you're starting a venture, there's a lot of trial and error. There are mistakes and triumphs. I'm curious about some of the failures you've experienced and what you've learned along the way. Is there anything you would like to share with us that's not too embarrassing, I guess, that you think we could learn from?
Yeah, I mean, well, I hope to fail. And I say this to the team, like, to the 2.5 of us, that I hope we fail every day, because that's the only, like, we learn from our mistakes, and that's the only way that we can continue to build a product that customers want and customers need. We've been quite transparent about YUTY, and before YUTY it was YUTY Bazaar and that whole process. If you remember yutybazaar.com, that was, you know, our MVP that I built. It was horrendous. The customer experience was rubbish. It wasn't a pretty site. The branding was confusing. And we didn't expect to get, you know, all of the traffic that we did have. We just wanted to see whether, you know, our models worked and whether we were making matches. And we do everything, you know, in a transparent way. There isn't a closed beta or anything exclusive. Like, we try and be inclusive, which means everyone sees our mistakes and we learn from it. So I think, you know, some would say, oh my gosh, you had an embarrassing product and that's a failure. And I don't see it as a failure, because, you know, we learned from it and we received feedback that allowed us to, you know, rebrand and bring YUTY to the forefront. And, you know, YUTY's gone through a whole anthropomorphization. She's now very human, driven by me, and now there's an extremely customer-friendly site that is responsive and is mobile friendly and all the various different things. Other things that have, you know, others would say we failed at was we received, you know, press and there was noise. And I would send a personal email to every single person that purchased on YUTY. But other than that, there was no marketing. And anyone will be like, oh my gosh, you failed to engage, you know, customers that were coming, or potential customers that were coming to YUTY. You did no retargeting. You did none of these things. No, you know, abandoned cart emails or anything like that. All of this that's like, you know, basics for running sort of an e-commerce business or marketplace, or even having a product. And, you know, as I said, some will say it was a failure, but for us, it was really important to kind of understand who's coming, why are people coming when we're not expecting them to come, and it really is driven, you know, what we now have, which is kind of a whole marketing flow and campaign that we have on YUTY. But I guess those are kind of the key ones that I could think. There were tons, but we consistently learn. So we hope to make mistakes every day. We hope to be open and transparent about it. We hope that it allows people to come on, want to continue going on that journey and feedback to us in a real way, because we're not afraid of criticism. We're not going to do things, you know, and make everything perfect, even though that's my nature, because it doesn't allow us to know whether we're building something that people want, that they need.
So kind of following through on that thought, how is the reality of YUTY different from what you originally envisioned a few years ago?
I think the reality of YUTY is that I wanted to build a business which, you know, matched people to products, the right products, sustainably, so that we could all feel empowered. And, you know, we could reduce the environmental impact. And I think I knew it was going to be hard work, and it has been. You know, we talk about YUTY, and I'm even kind of honored that I'm even sitting on a phone call speaking to you, Wendy, for the second time because of YUTY. But it's not nearly as recognizable as, you know, Amazon's Alexa or Apple's Siri. But we do hope that, you know, in the future, that all 7.5 billion people in the world, you know about YUTY. But I think the reality is, you know, I've always known it was going to take an incredible amount of work, and that it's going to take more work, and we're just going to continuously go on that journey until, you know, everyone that has access to internet is using YUTY to make informed decisions in a way that reduces waste. So I think that's the only thing. It wasn't anything to do with how this, you know, the product worked or the site or anything like that. It was just, I was always cognizant of the amount of work that it would take to build a business that would make the impact I was hoping it would make.
So you have all this, dream meets reality, a ton of work. How do you, and you also said that you're an introvert, being an entrepreneur can be very lonely. And I'm curious about how it's sort of a two-part question about your sanity, right? As you're the parent to two young children, you have your family. So there's that piece of, you know, being there for your family and staying centered as a human being. And then there's the whole piece about being an entrepreneur, having to make all these decisions, 1,000 decisions a day, feeling kind of lonely. And you kind of need other people to bounce ideas off of, I imagine. So what do you do to kind of create community or build connections with other people as an entrepreneur? Do you have anybody who mentors you? How do you deal with the mentorship issue if you have any mentors?
Yeah, 4 Fs. So, you know, I have the 4 Fs, which I'm feeling incredibly lucky to have. So it's family, friends, founders, and funders. So, you know, my family kind of keep me sane and insane. Children insane. Husband and mother and sister keep me incredibly sane. And the same with my friends. I think founders, it was really important to find people who are going through this, because as you said, it can be really isolating going on this journey. And especially during COVID, you know, where you are home and there is no way of meeting people in person. there were programs. I joined which was a community of female founders, and I was able to meet like-minded individuals and those who are going on a similar journey. And at Oxford, we have kind of the entrepreneurship kind of network as well. And it's just meeting people who are going through this, and various WhatsApp groups, and speaking to one another to support one another on this journey. And then funders, you know, my investors, my advisory board have been incredibly supportive, and they all mentor me in their own ways, to kind of give me the support that's needed to kind of lead YUTY, to be the product that we want it to be, and to do the things and make the impact that we would like it to be. So it's the 4 Fs: family, friends, founders, and funders.
Love it. Love it. I'll remember that. So if somebody wants to submit their product for consideration to YUTY, how would they do that?
As I said earlier, well, first of all, there's brands can submit to brands@yuty.me. So, you know, they can be listed on YUTY after they go through this curation process that we have in terms of reviewing the brands, ensuring that they meet the sustainability and conscious pillars that we have.
Okay.
And we're aligned on both sides, but that's it. Brands@yuty.me. And it sounds generic, but actually it's coming directly to me. So I'll be responding.
Okay, now we know. Now we know who's really behind that email address. Okay, cool. Brands@yuty.me. Okay, excellent. And so 2 final questions as we're wrapping up here. What advice would you give to other aspiring entrepreneurs out there? And you can think about this as, you know, the other Simis out there, you know, people who are women of color who want to kind of make their mark in the beauty industry, or it could be sort of the 1863, you know, venture community in general, or entrepreneurs of color. I'm curious what you would say to other aspiring entrepreneurs who are listening.
I think if you're truly passionate about making a difference to kind of not only your life, but others, just go for it and be better. Be better than the person before you, be better than, just be better. And I think the way that you be better and you go for it is clearly designing that vision, right? And then taking the action and doing the incredible amounts of work that allows you to be better. Also surround yourself with smart and supportive people, you know, and your customers. Know who your customers are, speak with your customers, and fail quickly. That's the other thing. Fail quickly, learn, and then repeat the whole process again. I think, you know, when you're mission driven, you'll be fine. Just ensure that, you know, if we're thinking about who is in front of me in the UK, the Sharmadine Reeds or the Freddie Harrells, it's going to be better, so that we can make it so that everyone that follows is better than us. So it's just that continuous be better.
Okay, thank you. One last question. What is the kindest thing anyone has ever done for you?
Do you know what? I saw this earlier. I was like, oh no. Okay, so the kindest thing that anyone's ever done for me, I think about like what resonates with me and what has resonated with me over the past, I guess, my entire life, the past 30 odd years. And it's been listening without judgment. I think when I was younger, I'd go around to my next door neighbor's house, Laurie. Laurie was born in 1911, actually the same day that the Titanic set sail. And he was married to Iris, and he would tell me these stories about World War I and World War II. And I would just listen. I think I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I was kind of fascinated, but I think I was just listening without judgment, and it made him feel so good. And considering I was sitting in my next door neighbor's house, and he's lived through World War I and World War II, and he's Caucasian, and I'm this like small black little girl. I feel like him telling the story and me listening is something that has always kind of stayed with me, and it stayed with me when I volunteered at a hospice, and I was listening to people nearing the end of their lives telling their stories, and seeing how it made them feel that someone was listening. And the same with when I was an auxiliary nurse at the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery, again, just listening without judging. And I think that's kind of what I think about sometimes with YUTY, is that we built YUTY to recognize everyone. And I guess when we match people to products, we're kind of saying we see you, we hear you, we're listening. And I think it's I think that's kind. But whenever someone does listen, like you are, which is incredibly kind, or when anyone's listening, I think that's incredibly kind. And then the other thing is, last week, or maybe the week before, Courtney Mannion, she sent me an email. Courtney Mannion is she works at a marketing agency that's helping us with our email campaigns. And she said, "I appreciate you." And I thought that was incredibly kind, because of course she's aware of the work that I'm doing, and I'm aware of the work that they're doing to support us. But it was like one of the first things, not it's signed off, it was like one of the first things that was said, and then it was a whole stream of things afterwards. But it was like, oh, she's listening, she's seeing, she appreciates. And I think that was incredibly kind. That was an incredible kind thing that I remembered, that's still sticking with me a couple of weeks later.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Simi. So, okay, we are at time, so we need to wrap up here and let Simi go on with her evening. I'm sure that she has many, many things to do before she sleeps tonight, as every good entrepreneur. But Simi, I wanted to thank you so much for such a lively and authentic conversation with the 1863 community today. You are such a gift, and it was such an honor to have you here today. I want to also thank everybody who joined us. And I want to let everyone know that we did record today. We are recording today's session. So this session will go up onto the 1863 Ventures YouTube channel. And we hope that you will subscribe to that, and also follow us on social media at 1863 Ventures on all of the social media platforms out there. Last thing is, we have a couple more speakers lined up for everybody. On October 26th, we will feature Donna Levin, co-founder of Care.com and the CEO of the Blank Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership at Babson College. And then on November 3rd, we're going to feature Tracy Graham of Graham Allen Partners. Tracy is a serial tech entrepreneur and investor in South Bend, Indiana. So please keep an eye out for the registration information for those two events. So thank you again to everyone who joined us. And thank you most of all to the beautiful and gracious and thoughtful and kind Simi Lindgren.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great evening, Simi.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.